The sky was red. Fires burned across the alien city. Buildings fell. Ships exploded in the sky. Screams echoed through the dusty streets. Captain Noro dragged his broken leg across the floor, leaving a trail of thick green blood. His uniform was torn. One of his arms was gone. But his mind was clear. He had one job left, one last chance to save his people. He crawled toward the shattered control panel, sparks jumping from the console. The command room was dark, the air filled with smoke. The enemy had struck hard, too hard. No warning, no mercy. Noro knew his world would fall in hours, maybe less. He reached the emergency beacon and slapped the button with his only remaining hand. "Please," he whispered. "Someone, anyone, help us." The console blinked. The signal was sent in ancient distress code, a cry for help in the language of the stars. Then everything went quiet. Captain Noro collapsed beside the panel. His eyes stayed open, but his breath stopped. The war was lost, but the message had escaped. Far beyond the burning planet, the signal raced through space, past stars, past nebulae, through dead systems and forgotten ruins. It traveled for days, until it reached a listening post hidden in the dark shadows of a moon-sized asteroid. Inside that post, something old began to move. The red light flashed on the console. An AI woke from hibernation. Its glowing eyes scanned the code. It read, the SOS, then accessed the source system. A voice, calm and cold, whispered through the void. Origin, Sector Rho 5. Classification, Extinction Level Event. Protocol, Deathworlder Response. Authorized, in Earth's orbit, buried beneath the surface of a frozen moon. The Deathworlder fleet began to wake. Signal confirmed, said the AI commander. Authorization, total deployment. Notify the High Council. Commander Ilara stood before the Council of Earth. Her black uniform was clean, her eyes sharp. We received a Class 7 SOS origin, the Corvin species, civilians, under siege. One of the old men at the table leaned forward. Why should we care? Ilara didn't blink, because the code was the old one, the one we gave the galaxy. When we still believed in mercy, the room went silent. We told the stars, Ilara continued. If you ever needed Ustrali, needed Usend, that code. Just once, and we'd come. And you want to honor that, a woman asked. Even now, after everything, Ilara nodded. Yes, we may have become Deathworlders, but we're not monsters. The council looked at each other. Then the vote was taken. 9 hands rose. 2 did not. The order was given. From across the Sol system, the Terran fleet moved. Black ships with no names, engines that bent light, armor made from crushed stars. Silent, fast, deadly, they passed Jupiter in moments, Saturn in seconds. Each ship carried warforged Marines, men and women trained to fight in gravity, in fire, in space, in pain. They said Earth-bred killers. They were wrong. Earth-bred survivors. And now, the survivors were angry. On the edge of the Corvin system, the enemy ships circled like vultures. They fired again and again on the dying planet. No resistance remained. The Corvins were broken, burned, forgotten. Then the sky cracked. The Terran fleet arrived with no warning. A flash of light. 10 warships appeared above the planet, their hulls glowing with raw energy. The invaders laughed at first. Tiny fleet. One said, old tech, said another. Then the first Terran missile launched. It wasn't a missile. It was a message. The explosion ripped through 3 enemy cruisers. No warning, no scans, no defense. The Terrans didn't stop. One by one, the invaders were torn apart. Precision strikes, gravity torpedoes, dark energy beams. Within 7 minutes, half the enemy fleet was gone. The rest tried to run. They didn't get far. Inside one of the Terran ships, Ilara stood with her arms behind her back. Broadcast, she ordered. The communication officer nodded. A voice echoed across the system. Clear, cold, human, Corvin people. We received your cry for help. Stand by. Assistance is in progress. No reply came. Only silence. Most Corvins were gone. The survivors were hiding deep underground. Datla turned to her second-in-command. Send teams down. Secure the capital. Look for survivors. Show them we came. The man hesitated. and the enemy ships still in orbit. She looked through the view screen at the last cruiser. It was turning its weapons toward the surface, trying to finish the job. "No survivors," she said softly. "Remove them." A beam of blue fire struck the cruiser's core. It vanished in a blink dot down on the planet. Small groups of Corvins crawled out from ruined buildings. Their skin was pale, eyes wide, shaking from fear and dust. Then they saw the DROP SHIPS. Black smooth, no markings, silent as death, and from them came humans, armored, tall, weapons glowing. Helmets, like skulls. The Corvins screamed in terror. A child ran toward a broken shelter. One human knelt and raised both hands. "It's okay," the human said. "We're here to help." The child stopped, trembled. Then slowly the child reached out and took the human's hand. From above, Elara watched the feeds. She saw the burned cities, the broken people. She saw her Marines handing out food, carrying the wounded, guarding the survivors. "We're not just warriors," she whispered. "We're the fire and the shield." A signal came in. One of the captains spoke. Enemy records recovered. This wasn't a random attack. It was the start of something larger. Elara narrowed her eyes. A test. Worse, the captain replied, a distraction. She stood straight. "Then we find the truth." Because now the galaxy knew, Earth answered cries for help. But they didn't just come with ships. They came with judgment. And they weren't done yet. The council chamber deep beneath Earth's surface was silent. Screens showed the burned remains of the Corvin world. Survivors huddled under makeshift shelters. Terran Marines moved among them, helping quietly. Commander Elara stood in the center of the room. Her eyes moved from one screen to another. "We saved them," she said, "but we were late." An old council member leaned forward. "Late because we waited." Elara didn't reply. She knew the truth. Earth had grown cold. After centuries of war, betrayal, and fear, the humans stopped answering every cry. They watched, calculated, decided if help was worth it. But the Corvins had used the old code, the one Earth had once shared with the galaxy. A promise now. That promise was alive again. "We deployed everything," said the council member. "The full fleet exposed our strength. Are we ready for the storm this will bring?" Elara's voice was calm. "We are Deathworlders. We do not hide. We prepare." A second voice chimed in through the chamber. It was Admiral Reg from Fleet Command. "We've decrypted the enemies. Comes," he said. It was never just about the Corvins. This was a probe, a test, a distraction. Elara narrowed her eyes. "From what?" "There's movement in sectors Editwell. Multiple systems showing signs of mobilization. Not Corvin attackers. Someone else bigger, older." The council chamber went cold. Someone whispered, "The Varn Dominion." Elara looked up. "They vanished 200 years ago." "No," Red said. "They went silent. Now they're waking up. Thousands of light years away, in a hollow moon orbiting a dead star." A being covered in obsidian armor watched Terran footage. His glowing red eyes narrowed as he saw Earth's ships wipe out his scout fleet. So the humans still bite. Smaller figure behind him trembled. We thought they were passive now, focused on their own borders." The armored figure laughed softly. It wasn't a happy sound. "They forgot one thing," he said. "You can never cage a Deathworlder." They stood and walked to the window. "Let's see how far they'll go for mercy." Back on the Corvan world, Elara walked through the ruined streets. The sky was still filled with smoke, but the fires were out. The people had begun rebuilding. A young Corvin child walked beside her, holding her hand, the same one who had reached out during the landing. "What's your name?" Elara asked. "Leric," the child whispered. "You're strong, Leric." The child looked up at her with wide eyes. "Will they come back?" Elara looked to the sky. "They might, but next time. We'll already be waiting." Suddenly, a transmission alert echoed in her earpiece. "Commander, you need to see this. We found something." Inside a shattered enemy warship, Terran engineers had uncovered a strange black box. It wasn't from the usual invaders. The tech was far more advanced. The markings were too old. Elara stared at it as the engineers opened the casing. A hologram activated. A map of the galaxy glowed red dot sectors, marked with symbols. Dozens of systems highlighted. Targets, Ilara asked. Yes, said the engineer. It's a war map, pre-calculated invasion paths, civilian systems, weak worlds. They plan to hit them all. Fast. The final system on the map flashed. It was Sol Earth. The room froze. They weren't just testing the Corvins, the engineer whispered. They were testing us. Later that night, Ilara stood alone at the base camp. The stars above were quiet. But she didn't feel peace. She felt the old weight again. The one her generation thought had passed. Earth had stepped back for years. Let others rule, let others speak, but peace was never safe. It was borrowed time. Her comms device buzzed. Admiral Rez's voice came through. Orders from the Council. You're not just a rescue fleet anymore. You're now the tip of the spear. Meaning, Ilara asked, you'll lead the first strike. Before the Varn spread, she looked out into the sky again. Then, I need more than warships, she said. I need the revenants. There was a long pause. Are you sure? They feared the fleet, she said. But the revenants, they fear nothing more. In the cold deserts of Mars, deep under the red sands, machines stirred. The revenants were not ships, not soldiers. They were something else. Earth's oldest weapon. Not made for saving lives, but for ending wars. Fast, final, silent. No one spoke of them anymore. Even the Council hesitated. But Ilara had no time for hesitation. Meanwhile, across 3 galaxies, whispers spread. The humans are moving. They've sent the fleet. They're waking up. Some laughed. Humans are soft now. Others remembered Earth's last war and fell silent. On a mining station, a drunk trader dropped his glass when he saw the news. 10 Terran ships, surrounded by destroyed fleets, orbiting a burned world. One old man at the bar nodded slowly. They've answered one call, he said. Now the whole galaxy will cry. Back on the Corvin planet, Larrick stood with his people. New shelters had been built. Medicine had arrived. Food was shared above them. The black shape of a Terran warship blocked the sun. Child again? You're safe now, she said. For how long? Larrick asked. Ilara's voice was quiet. As long as we stand. And far beyond them, deep in the dark, the enemy prepared again. But this time, Earth was coming. Not to save .2, end it. The stars above the Corvin world were no longer peaceful. Dozens of Terran warships now floated in orbit, giant, silent, dark. Like sleeping beasts, they watched, they waited, but they were ready to strike again at any moment. Commander Ilara stood. Inside her flagship Vengeance of Dawn, staring at the galactic map. The next target is real, she said. Sector Zeta 12, civilian colonies. No defenses. If the Varn hit them, they'll fall in hours. Beside her, Admiral Rey appeared on the screen. His voice was calm, but his face looked grim. Then we hit first. Total wipeout. Same as we did on Corvin 9, Ilara shook her head. Not the same. On Corvinine, we were responding this time. We're starting it. Red frowned. Are you hesitating? No, Ilara said. I just know what happens when Deathworlders start a war. It never ends clean. There was a pause. Then Rez spoke again. The Council has approved use of the Revenants. Ilara nodded once. Deploy them. Far away, in the cold black of space near Titan's orbit, 10 hidden ships began to move. They were not normal warships. They were ghost machines, ancient, Terran Black Ops units. Removed from records, erased from memory, each ship had no name, only numbers. Inside, no crew moved, no voices spoke. The Revenants were fully automated, built by Earth's darkest AI minds. No fear, no pause, no mercy. As they slipped into warp space, they carried one command. Find the Varn. End them in Sector Zeta 12. A peaceful colony world named Brillix turned slowly under its green sun. People farmed, children played, alien families laughed in wide open fields. They had no idea death was coming. Above them, the Varn fleet appeared from the black huge warships shaped like knives. They came fast, without warning, without communication. After another, orbital satellites exploded. Defense stations vanished in white fire. Panic spread across the surface. Alarms blared, emergency shelters filled with frightened civilians. Then something strange happened. The Varn fleet. Stopped. They held orbit but didn't fire again. Inside the lead Varn ship, the warlord Jerak growled. "Why do they not scream?" he asked. His second-in-command glanced at the scanners. "I don't know, warlord. They are evacuating, but something is wrong." Jerak stepped toward the screen. "This is too easy." And then the stars moved. 10 Revenant ships dropped out of warp, completely silent. No lights, no warnings, just there. In less than a second, the first Varn cruiser was sliced in half. The second tried to turn. A cold beam of energy struck its core. It was gone. The Varn panicked. "Who are they?" One screamed. Jerak roared. "Not Deathworlders. Something worse." Back on Earth, council members watched the live feed. One of them, an old woman with silver eyes, turned to the others. "I thought we locked the Revenants away." Another answered, "We did, but Alara brought them back. They were never meant to be used again." "No," said the third. "They were meant to be used only when the galaxy forgot why it feared US." The room went silent. Eller's ship arrived at Brillix minutes later. By then, most of the Varn fleet was gone, destroyed or running. Her marines deployed to the surface, not to fight, but to calm the terrified colonists. An old alien farmer looked at the sky, then at the armored humans. "You came," he said. Ilara nodded. "We always come when the innocent are hunted." He shook his head slowly. "But now the hunters fear you." In the wreckage of space, a Terran salvage team found something unusual. A Varn data core intact. The tech crew brought it to Alara immediately. "We found their orders," the technician said. "This wasn't the real attack, just another test." Elara's eyes narrowed. "They're measuring our response." "Yes, and they know now. We'll respond fast, hard, without warning." She stared at the glowing screen for a moment, then she said, "They're trying to figure out how much we're willing to give. And what if we already gave too much?" Ships now drifting silently among the stars. Then they've already made their worst mistake. On a far-off Varn-controlled station, Warlord Jerak smashed his hand into a control panel. 2 attacks. 2 failures? What is this Earth? One of his commanders replied, "They are not like the others. Their logic is not predictable. They don't seek territory. They don't conquer. They only move when provoked." "Then we provoke again," Jerak growled. "But next time, we strike home." A few days later, a report reached Eller's ship. A deep space listening post near the edge of Sol had gone dark. No signal, no trace that it had been hidden for 200 years. Only one enemy could have known about it. Ilara stood still. "They're testing us again." Her second asked, "Should we respond?" She turned slowly. "No," she said. "We don't respond, we prepare." Prepare? For what? She stared at the map. A red circle glowed over Earth's location. For when they come for home. That night, alone in her quarters, Alara looked at a small metal token on her desk. It was old, rusted, from Earth's first interstellar war. On it were 4 words: "We answer with fire." She closed her eyes. "They called for help," she whispered. "Now we'll show the galaxy why that matters," and far away. Something darker stirred, not just Varn, something older, something watching and waiting. The stars over Earth were quiet. Too quiet. For weeks, no new attacks came. No signals, no warnings, just silence. But Commander Alara didn't trust it. She stood in the war room of her flagship, watching old satellite data again and again. "They're not hiding," she said. "They're waiting." Her second-in-command frowned. "But why? After we destroyed their fleets at Corvin and Brillix, they should have backed down." Ilara shook her head. "Not if this is part of a larger plan." She tapped the map on the screen. Every strike so far strategic, measured. Each one gave them something. Data, reaction times, how fast we deploy, how much firepower we use. "You think they're testing us?" "No," she said. "They're mapping our limits." Meanwhile, deep in the Oort cloud, an ancient Terran listening probe blinked awake. Its sensors had detected something massive. Not a fleet, not a ship, something worse. It wasn't moving toward Earth. It was already here. The probe didn't have time to send a full message. Just 3 words reached Earth's high command: "Unknown entity detected." On Mars, Inside a red fortress buried beneath the dust, Earth's Defense Corps activated Protocol 13. The screen above flashed red. One word pulsed in silence. Unleash. Elara stood in the center of her ship's command deck. As the alert came in, ma'am, her officer said quickly, "We have something incoming." "Not Varn. We don't know what it is." "Where?" "Sector 9 cell border." She froze. "That's Earth's last defense ring." The officer looked pale. "It bypassed the ring." "How?" "No idea. No engine trail, no warp trace. It just appeared." Elara turned to the communications officer. "Raise all revenants, power every fleet in reserve, and alert the Council." In the sky above Neptune, something massive flickered into view. It was shaped like a spear, dark and long with glowing blue veins. It had no markings, no signs of life, yet it pulsed with energy. As Earth's fleets moved into position, the unknown object simply floated. TERRANAI systems scanned it from every angle. "No threats detected," the computer said, "but extreme unknown material density. Internal structure. Alive, Elara repeated. The AI paused. "It's not a ship. It's a being." Earth's high orbit filled with warships, hundreds of destroyers, carriers, black-armored revenant vessels. They aimed every weapon they had at the entity. Then it spoke, no sound, just a thought, a whisper in every Terran mind. "You burn worlds for mercy," it said, "but your fire is young." Elara gripped the edge of the command table. "What are you?" The voice echoed again. "We are the ones who watched you rise, who left the stars when you were still crawling. The Varn service, you were not supposed to awaken." Elara whispered to herself. So the Varn were just puppets. Her second-in-command stepped closer. "Ma'am, it's not attacking, but it's scanning Earth." Elara's eyes narrowed. "What happens if it finds something it doesn't like?" No one answered. Then it fired. Not a weapon. A signal. It hit Earth's moon, a deep underground facility known only to a few. Site Omega, the entire station went dark. "Send a team," Elara ordered, but it was too late. From beneath the surface of the moon, a second signal answered, a darker one. In a flash, every Terran warship shut down, engines stalled. Lights flickered. The unknown entity was disabling the entire fleet. But then, one ship remained active, the Vengeance of Dawn, Elara's ship. "Why aren't we offline?" her second asked. Elara turned slowly. "Because I disobeyed orders years ago. I replaced our AI core with something older." The lights flickered and the ship spoke. "I remember," the voice said. "They came before. Long ago. They broke our skies. But we made them bleed." It was an ancient AI-1 built. From Earth's first war with the unknown, it had been silent for centuries now. It wanted revenge. The Vengeance of Dawn powered every weapon system at once. Engines screamed to life. The unknown entity sensed the threat and began to charge, fire all cannons. Elara ordered. Massive bolts of energy struck the beings. Surface. It didn't move. Elara turned to the AI target, its core. The ship's sensors zoomed in. "One weak point," the AI voice said softly. "We were born to die, but not quietly." The main cannon fired. The impact struck dead center and the entity screamed. For the first time, the stars shivered. Then it vanished. No debris, no explosion, just gone. All other ships came back online seconds later. Admiral Reyes' voice came through. "What the hell was that?" Elara stared at the now empty sky. Not a ship, not a god, just a warning. Back on Earth, the Council debated in panic. "They broke into our systems without entering orbit. They disabled our fleets. In seconds. They're beyond the Varn, beyond logic." And then one voice cut through the noise. Elara's broadcast from orbit. "We now know the truth," she said. "We were never fighting the Varn. They were tools, slaves. The real enemy is watching." She paused, but let them watch. The stars behind her fleet glowed red with readiness. Because Earth is not afraid, we are Deathworlders, and we do not run. We burn. In the black, far beyond the edge of known space, a group of tall, silent figures watched a glowing screen. One turned to the others. "She speaks with fire." Another replied, "Then let her burn." The screen shut off. The war was no longer coming. It had already begun. The silence after the battle was worse than the war itself. Debris floated in space. broken ships, burned bodies, pieces of lives that would never return. The remains of the alien fleet that had ambushed the Deathworlders hung in the void, lifeless captain. Reyna stood on the bridge of the TNS Wrath. Her fingers trembled slightly as she zoomed in on the wreckage. Her face was cold, but her eyes were not. "We warned them," she whispered. Beside her, Commander Hart folded his arms. "They didn't listen. They thought we were bluffing." "No one listens," she said, "until it's too late." Down. Below in the war hangars, the shock troops were silent. The humans had won the last battle, but something felt wrong. Too easy, too quiet. Like a storm still hiding behind the clouds, the alien SOS that started all this still played on loop across. The system's a signal from a dying world. A voice begging for help. A voice that awakened the most dangerous fleet in the galaxy, the humans from Earth, the Deathworlders. But something about that signal still didn't make sense. Meanwhile, deep in the ruins of the alien planet Taraxis, a lone creature crawled out of the rubble. General Kareth, blood leaking from his side, limped toward a small glowing device. The sky above was on fire. Human dropships still flew overhead. Kareth coughed black blood. They were not supposed to come like this. Not all of them. He activated the emergency beacon. Phase 2 begins now. Back on Wrath, alarms screamed. Reyna turned sharply. "Report, ma'am," said the tactical officer, eyes wide. "Something just activated on the surface of Taraxis energy. Readings off the scale." Hart stepped forward. "Is it a weapon?" "No, sir. It's a signal, but not the same SOS. This one's coded, complex, ancient." Reyna narrowed her eyes. "Put it on screen." The screen blinked. Lines of glowing alien script flowed like water. Then it turned into something else. Coordinates. Deep space coordinates. Far beyond any explored sector. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why send this after their planet's already gone?" Hart's voice was calm but firm. "Because this was never about rescue. This whole thing was a trap." Reyna felt her chest. "Titan, you think the SOS was bait?" Hart nodded. "To bring us here? To make us deploy everything? And while our full fleet is here, something worse waits at those new coordinates." Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Council of Surviving Alien warlords met in a hidden station. "They've taken Taraxis," said one, his voice hollow, "and more," said another. "But they've overextended. The Deathworlders have deployed nearly everything." A third alien, dressed in ancient robes, smiled with sharp teeth. "And now we bleed them dry." They activated their hologram map, the new coordinates. Trap would lure Earth's command ships into the dark sector known as Varnix's Expanse, a place filled with energy-eating beasts, gravity storms, mines, ghost fleets from lost wars. The perfect place to bury the most powerful species ever born. Reyna stared at the map in her hands. She knew the truth now. They weren't the hunters. They were the prey. But Earth had one rule. If you touch one of ours, we burn 10 of yours. Reyna raised her voice. "Send a message to High Command." "Aye, Captain. Message ready." She spoke clearly. "They want to lure us. Let them try. But Earth doesn't walk into traps." She smiled coldly. "We turned them into firestorms." The Wrath moved. The Fury of Europa, Silent Judgment, Hellsong Black Titan, and Saber of Mars. Every ship was armed with neutron hammers, solar cores, and void missiles. They didn't go to explore, they went to hunt. As they entered the dark sector of Varnix, the space around them changed, stars disappeared, the light twisted. Gravity pressed in from all sides. But the Deathworlders didn't fear the dark. They were born in it. The trap was already waiting. Mines with antimatter tips floated in invisible clouds. Creatures with tentacles of pure energy swam through the vacuum, sensing heat and fear. An old warfleet once thought lost powered up its ancient engines. Automated alien ships, still running from a war 1,000 years old. Saw the Terrans as enemies. Reyna's voice echoed through the ship. "Shields full. Battle formations tight. Do not break ranks. Remember who we are." The Wrath moved forward. First stand, the darkness attacked. Mines exploded all around the fleet, sending ripples of force through the void. Creatures swarmed. One latched onto the Saber of Mars, draining its power core. "EMP rounds." "Launch now," shouted Hart. The gunners obeyed. The creatures screamed as waves of electric force tore through them. Then the Ghost Fleet arrived. Hundreds of warships, all automated, opened fire at once. Return fire. Prioritize AI cores. Reyna barked. Beams of white-hot death shot from the Terran ships. Precision, power, rage. The Deathworlders didn't back away. They pushed in. Every trap the enemy had made was now burning in the hidden alien station. The warlords watched in horror. They weren't supposed to survive this. They weren't even supposed to find us. One shouted, "Send everything. Every ship, every weapon, send it now." But it was already too late. On their station's scanner, a red dot, blinked dot, then another dot, then hundreds. The Terran counterfleet had jumped in behind them. The humans had sent decoys into the trap. The real force had traced the transmission. Back to the source, the station was surrounded. Reyna's voice echoed into their command deck. "This is for Taraxis." Then feel the fury of the Deathworlders. The screen went black. The last thing the warlords heard was the charging hum of orbital plasma cannons. Hours later, silence again returned to space. But this time, it was final. No more traps. No more ghost fleets. No more games. The Deathworlders had answered the SOS. They had come. And now, they were not leaving until the stars themselves learned to fear. The sky of Krastin was dark. Not because it was night, but because the clouds were full of smoke. The air was thick, burned metal, ash. The scent of fear, in the distance, screams echoed through shattered buildings. Captain Elira of the Krastin Defense Command crawled behind a broken wall, her pale green skin covered in dust and dried blood. Her helmet had been blown off. One of her arms was broken, but her mind screamed louder than the bombs falling from the sky. They said, "They were here to help," she whispered, barely able to speak. "Why is this happening?" She looked up, and there it was. A human warship, floating above the ruins like a god of death. A black wedge of steel and fire. Silent, watching, waiting. It hadn't even fired the last shot. That had come from a ground drone, one of hundreds now walking through the city, scanning survivors and deciding who lived and who didn't. The Deathworlders had come, and they had brought everything. 2 days earlier. The human fleet had arrived in Krastin orbit, but they didn't attack immediately. Instead, they broadcast a single message. You interfered. You stopped the signal. You tried to hide the cries of the dying. We heard them anyway. We are here now. Then, silence. High Commander Brel of Krastin stood in the orbital command tower, trembling. "This wasn't our fight," he hissed. "Why are they blaming us?" His advisor, a thin, blue-scaled creature named Harlock, whispered, "Because we buried the distress signal. We erased it before the council could vote. We thought no one would find out, but they did," Brel muttered. And now Earth's full response was above them. Not a single ship, not even a fleet. This was an armada. Planet-breaker cruisers, swarms of drones, orbital platforms, AI-driven destroyers. A nightmare. "They gave us time," Harlock said. 2 days. They're waiting for something. Mercy?" Brel asked. "No," Harlock said. "They're waiting for confirmation." Down on the surface, a single child cried beneath a fallen building, the last survivor of a wiped-out village. Half her leg was gone. She held a broken toy wand given to her by a human doctor years ago during a peace exchange. She whispered into a dying beacon, "Please, someone help." The beacon flared once, and the human satellites heard it, high above. The ship Vengeance Protocol received the signal. "Child confirmed," the AI said. "Species, Virulon, civilian. Request, aid." "Hostile action confirmed against protected zone." The system paused. "Authorization, full. Commence judgment protocol." And then the sky fell. Captain Tyrus Wren watched from his flagship, arms crossed behind his back. He said nothing as the orbital strikes began. His officers remained silent. There were no cheers, no joy, no vengeance, only duty. "Mark, Phase 1 complete." His second-in-command said, "TYRUS," nodded. Ground response, multiple cities resisting. Krastin military deploying shield walls, mechs, and tunnel networks. "Targeting key resistance hubs now. Deploy the Iron Walkers," Tyrus said coldly. "Let them see what Earth calls infantry." Illyra saw them first, 10 meters tall, black armor, red visors, moving like tanks with legs. They didn't shout, they didn't taunt, they simply walked forward, firing plasma bursts that tore through walls and armor like paper. One of them stopped in front of a Krastan command bunker. Illyra heard the last words from inside over the comm. They're looking right at us. Boom. Nothing remained, just dust and silence in orbit. The Council of Galactic Law watched in horror. Dozens of species shouted over each other, demanding explanations. This is madness. Where is the restraint? Earth is wiping them out. But Ambassador Dren of Earth said nothing for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold. You all heard the SOS. You all buried it. We did not, a Zelari leader screamed. So you're just going to destroy them all? Dren turned to him. No, just the ones who tried to silence the dying. By the third day, Krastan cities were silent. The last defense towers had fallen. The shield walls were gone. Resistance squads surrendered on sight, but the warships didn't leave. They stayed, watching, waiting, in case anyone tried again, and in the rubble. Human medical drones moved silently, helping survivors. Not speaking, not judging, just working, because Earth wasn't there for conquest. They were there for justice. And the galaxy had finally seen what it looked like when Deathworlders deployed everything. On the final night, Illyra was pulled from the rubble by a human soldier. His face was hidden behind a helmet, voice filtered through static. You'll live, he said, scanning her arm. No need to thank us. I don't understand, she whispered. Why save me? He paused, then spoke quietly. Because someone out there cried for help. And that cry matters, even if you tried to bury it. Then he walked away, leaving her staring at the stars, knowing that Earth had heard the call and answered with everything. The stars were quiet, but the galaxy was not. Deep in orbit around the smoldering ruins of Venthyr Prime, the Deathworlder fleet hovered like silent predators. Their black hulls reflected nothing. Their weapons were cold but ready. And inside, the flagship Vindicator, Captain Adrian Cole, received a message that made her pause. It was not an enemy transmission. Not this time. It was a voice, a soft, broken, alien voice. Please, don't leave us behind. The signal came from a tiny escape pod drifting near the war zones, edge barely functional, barely alive. Scans showed one survivor inside, a child of the Rilica species, malnourished, barely conscious. Adrian looked at the image on the screen. The child was clutching a shattered comm device, whispering into it. She leaned forward and gave a single order. Bring it aboard. Inside the medical bay, the Deathworlder medics worked fast. Machines hummed, fluids dripped. The child trembled as warmth finally returned to its limbs. Is this the end? The child asked in broken English. Adrian stood beside the table. No, she said quietly. You're safe now. The child blinked. You're the humans, the monsters from the burning stars. Adrian knelt beside him. We're not monsters, but someone hurt you. Tell me who. The boy hesitated. His small hands clutched at the blankets. The Zorthon Empire came. They said we sent the signal to the wrong race. They said we woke the sleeping giants. Adrian's eyes narrowed. And now they're afraid. The boy nodded. They killed the grown-ups, said it was punishment, said the Deathworlders. Would come and destroy everything. But you saved me. Adrian stood. Her voice was calm, but behind it, rage boiled. They were right about one thing. She turned to the bridge. Moments later, the fleet shifted course. They want fear, Adrian said. We'll give them silence. Far across the galaxy, on the high throne of Zorthon Command, Supreme Marshal Zeltrax watched his generals bicker. Reports had flooded in entire outposts, wiped out without a single distress call. Orbital platforms gone. Patrol fleets missing. They are playing with shadows, one commander shouted. There is no proof humans did this. They didn't. Me too, another whispered. We told them what we feared most. We taught them what would hurt us. Zeltrax slammed his fist on the table. Imnoth, find me the Deathworlder fleet and destroy it. But before the command could be transmitted, every screen in the war room flickered. A human face appeared. Captain Adrian Cole. No need to search, she said coldly. We're already here. Behind her, the void burned white. Then came silence. Meanwhile, on the Deathworlder flagship, the child sat upright, wrapped in clean blankets, watching stars streak past the viewing bay. A human soldier handed him a warm drink. "You'll see your people safe again," he said. "But why are you helping?" the boy asked softly. "Everyone said you hate us." The soldier smiled faintly. "We don't fight for hatred. We fight for those who have no one else left." And as the stars passed by, the child finally believed them. In the ashes of Venthyr Prime, flowers bloomed where fire once fell. But in the Zorthon core worlds, thunder now approached, and it had a name, humanity. And they had just started speaking. The stars flickered in the sky like broken lights. Ships were burning in orbit. The enemy was close. Screams echoed through the ruins of Trella's city, once the capital of the Niari homeworld. Now it was a graveyard. Commander Alrex dragged his broken leg across the ground, smoke in his lungs, ash on his face. He held a small child, his niece, the only family he had left. She was unconscious. "They're coming," he whispered. "Not much time." A booming sound shook the ground. Enemy walkers. 4 of them. They moved like metal beasts, each step crushing bones and stone. Alrex looked up and froze. The last wall of the underground shelter collapsed. There was nothing left. But then the sky screamed. A sonic boom, louder than anything they'd heard before, cracked open the clouds. A streak of fire tore through the dark. Heavens! And then another. Then 5 more. Something massive came through the clouds. It wasn't enemy. It was Tehran. A Deathworlder warship broke through the sky like a falling god. The clouds caught fire. The walkers looked up and paused from the warship's belly pods, launched hundreds of them, each one a sleek, black dart carrying elite Terran soldiers. The humans were here, and they were not holding back in orbit. Fleet Admiral Kahithan stood on the bridge of the TNS Dreadhammer. His voice was cold and sharp. Phase 2 begins. Drop every combat mech. All fire teams on ground within 5 minutes. An officer turned. "Admiral, we're risking everything." Kahithan didn't blink. They butchered civilians. They used children as shields. There are no second chances. The Dreadhammer rumbled again. Even though it was in space, the vibrations could be felt from the weapons charging in the silence that followed. Kahithan whispered, "Let's show them what hell looks like." Down on the surface, the battlefield turned red. Terran mexed. Twice the height of tanks landed like falling giants. The ground cracked beneath them. Twin plasma cannons rotated and fired with precise fury. "Target those walkers," shouted Lieutenant Reyes, piloting Valkyrine, one of the heavy assault mechs. No mercy. The first enemy walker tried to pivot. 2 late. Valkyrie -9 unleashed. Both plasma cannons. The walker melted another. Terran squad landed beside a collapsing building. Sergeant Mira took point, eyes scanning with her HUD. "They're using drones, low altitude, heat-seeking," she muttered. Private Kellen beside her nodded. "Doesn't matter. Our suits are colder than the dead." He was right. Terran war armor wasn't just armor, it was smart. It could cloak heat signatures, jam signals, and amplify strength tenfold. These soldiers weren't just humans, they were monsters made for war, at the heart of the enemy camp. The alien commander called Terethaquatched the Terran assault in disbelief. His species, the Varnock, had never faced resistance like this. His communications officer turned, shaking. "Supreme One, they are not retreating. They're pushing into our core lines." Terethok snarled, "Impossible. Their numbers, they brought everything." The Varnock camp shook. Outside. The Deathworlders had broken through the perimeter and were now inside the compound. One of the elite unit's designated Shadow Wing moved like ghosts. They didn't march, they hunted. "Room clear," said Captain Naira, her rifle still warm. Beside her, Corporal Dane scanned a sealed blast door. "This leads to their command. Node, 10 guards inside. Minimum." Naira smirked. "Let's knock." A Terran breaching charge hissed against the metal dot. Boom. Smoke screams. The door flew off. Shadow Wing moved in. Lasers cutting down enemy officers before they could raise weapons. Tyrethok raised his own claw weapon, but a stun dart nailed him in the chest. His body went rigid. NYRA approached him, voice low. "This is for the children you slaughtered." She didn't kill him. She tagged him. he was being taken alive for. Now, in another region of the planet, massive artillery platforms were preparing to fire on the human forces. But just as they powered up, a low hum filled the sky. Enemy soldiers looked up confused. Then they saw it, a Terran stealth bomber. Cloaked until now, decloaked, and released kinetic rods from orbit. They weren't bombs. They were tungsten spears, dropped from space. There was no explosion, just raw impact. The ground folded under the force. The artillery platform was gone, turned into dust. Hours passed, the fighting continued, and then silence. Niari survivors, hiding in underground bunkers. Peeked out, they expected to see Varnak patrols. Instead, they saw Terran banners black. Flags with a single red mark. The sign of the Deathworlders and their soldiers were helping the wounded. Commander, Ulrich limped out, holding his niece. A Terran medic ran to him. "We've got her. She's safe now." Ulrich collapsed to his knees. "You came." The soldier nodded. "We got your signal. You're not alone." Back aboard the Dreadhammer, Admiral Kaithan looked at the burning map of the battlefield. Enemy resistance, 0%. Terran casualties, low. Mission status complete. He stood and turned to the fleet command channel. Begin extraction of civilians. Leave drones to sweep ruins for survivors, and tell Earth. He paused. Tell Earth, we've reminded the stars why they should fear us. But deep in a hidden sector of the galaxy, others were watching. Other alien empires, other warlords, and they were afraid. One whispered. They awakened the Deathworlders, and the humans didn't hold back. What happens when they really go to war? No one had an answer, because for the first time in centuries, the galaxy remembered what true terror looked like, and it spoke English. The skies of Yelthar burned orange as human carriers began unloading armored titans onto the surface. Giant machines 20 meters tall walked down from the ramps. Their footsteps cracked the soil, shaking the ground like gods had come. To wage war, I thought they were just myths, whispered Captain Ralvek of the Yelthar resistance. He stared up at one of the walking steel monsters. Deathwalkers. No, said Commander Jian from the Earth Expeditionary Force. Those are titans. Deathwalkers are something worse. A scream tore through the Cums. The main city of Drentha, still under control of the Slarn Dominion, was being hit by something massive. Titan 05 has engaged Slarn Fortress Gate, reported a calm AI voice. On the feed, the soldiers watched as the towering machine opened its chest ports. From inside, hundreds of tiny drones swarmed out, each programmed with micro-missile launchers and self-repair tools. The drones zipped toward the gate like angry bees. A moment later, the gate exploded in a wave of fire. You asked for help. They responded with extermination. Ralvek shook his head. We wanted rescue, not apocalypse. Jian simply looked at him. We were not the ones who betrayed the Treaty of Kalos. You called for the Deathworlders. We answered. In the underground tunnels beneath Drentha, the last Slarn warlord, Commander Kor, watched the destruction from a trembling surveillance drone. These ... creatures, Kor spat. They destroy everything. They do not negotiate. They do not even speak. His second-in-command, a younger officer named Slek, looked terrified. Sir, the orbital fleets are gone. Their ships are invisible to our scans. Their armor is impenetrable. And now they have those walking gods. Kor slammed his fist into the console. How did it come to this? He pulled up the intercepted SOS. Help us, please. It was the voice of a child, a Yelthar refugee boy, crying, begging. That one voice had reached a planet far beyond the stars, and that planet Earth had heard it back at the front line. A new sound echoed through the valley. A low hum. The humans stopped moving. Even the Titans halted. All eyes turned to the sky. Then it arrived. A massive circular ship, dark as night, appeared above the city. It made no sound, no weapons, no lights, but the moment it arrived, every piece of tech on the battlefield froze. What's happening? Asked Ralvek, backing away. Are we being attacked? Commander Jian stared up. No, that is the Arcmind. The what? The final stage, Jian said softly. Earth doesn't just use machines. We gave them minds. Above them, the Arcmind pulsed once. Instantly, every human machine rebooted in perfect coordination. The Titans moved again smoother, faster. The drones realigned, and from the Arcmine's hull, thousands of spider-like constructs dropped silently into the city ruins. "They're cleaning the city, Ralvek?" asked in disbelief. Jian nodded. "The Arcmine doesn't just fight, it reconstructs, repairs, revives." "What is your end game, Commander?" "We wipe out the Slarn," Jian replied. "Then we give this world back to your people rebuilt, better and safer than ever." Ralvek frowned. "Why would you help us, even after what we did?" Jian looked at him and said, "Because you called, and when Deathworlders are called, we come. But in the Slarn command tunnels, Warlord Corps refused to surrender. We still have the Iron Lances," he barked. "Bring them online. Aim at the Arcmind. Fire now." Slek hesitated. "Sir, that would mean targeting civilian zones." "Do it." A moment later, bright beams of energy lit up the sky. They slammed into the Arcmine's lower hull for the first time. The massive ship shifted. "Direct hit," Slek cried, then silence. No explosion, no collapse. Instead, the Arcmind pulsed again, and then everything turned to darkness. Lights, screens, power, all of it gone. "EMP?" Slek asked weakly. "No," Kor whispered, staring at the blank screen. "Judgment." The Arcmind responded in silence. The spider-like drones it had deployed earlier now turned red. They marched, no running, no flying, just a quiet march. They reached the Slarn tunnels in under 2 minutes, and they began their work. No bullets, no explosions, just light, pure, white, burning light, everything Slarn weapon. Wall Warrior was vaporized. It was not war, it was cleansing. Ralvek stood on the ruins of a former Slarn tower, watching it fall behind him. Commander Jian held up a hologram of the battlefield. No enemy movement, no resistance, just ash. "It's done," Jian said. Ralvek turned to him. "You were not saving us. You were ending them. We did both." Silence. Then Ralvek asked, "Will Earth come for us next?" Jian raised an eyebrow. "Did you betray humanity?" "No." "Did you harm a human child?" "No." "Then Earth has no quarrel with you." Jian turned and began walking back toward his dropship. "But remember this, Captain, when you call Deathworlders, you must be ready to pay the price." Ralvek didn't move. He simply watched the human ships rise, the Titans retreat, and the Arcmind vanish into the sky. The war was over, but the message would echo across galaxies. Do not ignore a cry for help, especially if Earth hears it, because when Earth responds, the stars change forever. The stars were quiet now. The screams of war had faded into whispers. The ashes of fallen cities drifted through space like forgotten prayers. But one ship remained above the burning world of Zeltar, one ship that held the fate of a galaxy inside. The Terran warship Judgment, Captain Mara Voss, stared at the broken planet below, her jaw clenched. "Is this what they wanted?" she asked softly. Beside her, Commander Jace Tan looked at the sensor screens. No life signals, only scattered heat. Signatures. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Behind them, the bridge was silent. Every crew member was waiting for Mara's final order. Then the message came in a hologram of Supreme Commander Kratok of the surviving Dranthi forces blinked into the air. His scales were torn, his armor dented, and his eyes hollow. "You win," he said. "You monsters, you Deathworlders, we surrender, please. End it." Mara didn't blink. "You invaded a helpless species. You ignored our warnings. You unleashed a war that consumed 10 star systems. We were desperate," Kratok shouted. "Our sun is dying. We needed the resources. We had no choice." Jace stepped forward, and the children of Elaris, the peace envoys, the cities you glassed before they could even speak. "Did they have a choice?" Kratok trembled. "We thought you wouldn't come. We thought humanity stayed in its grave." Mara's voice was cold as ice. "You were wrong." She ended the transmission. The crew waited. No orbital strike. Jace asked quietly. "No," Mara said. "They're already defeated. Let the silence teach them." Jace nodded. Then he whispered, "We deployed everything, Mara. What now?" Mara turned and walked to the observation window. The stars stretched before her silent, endless, waiting. "Now," she said, "we rebuild the rules." 2 days earlier, on the war-ravaged planet of Alaris Prime, the true reason humanity had come still echoed in the wind. It had started with a whisper, a single alien SOS sent in desperation, not to beg for conquest, but for mercy. But that signal had reached the wrong species. When Earth's Deathworlders had heard it, they didn't come with open arms. They came with weapons forged in the heart of black holes. They came with vengeance older than the stars. The Zeltari Alliance, who had hoped to erase the Illyrian people and steal their world, had been wiped from history. No warning shots, no warning shots, no second chances. Only fire. Now Captain Mara met with the remaining leaders of the United Earth Defense Council via secure hololink. The war was over, but the galaxy was watching. "Send the message," Mara said. A communication signal, clear and simple, was broadcast across all major frequencies. To all sentient civilizations, an SOS was heard. "It reached us. It will never be ignored again. If you harm the helpless, if you exploit the desperate, you won't face mercy. You'll face humanity." Far beyond the war in a quiet corner of the galaxy, a small race known as the Kyrene received the message. They were peaceful, weak, often bullied. But now they smiled. One elder said, "The Deathworlders are awake. We are no longer alone." A new age had begun. Not ruled by empires, not dominated by cruelty, but guarded by Earth's. Final words on Zeltar Mara walked through the ruins of the enemy command bunker. She stepped over cracked stone and shattered metal. She found the last journal of a Zeltari general. It read, "We laughed when they said humans were myths. We laughed when they warned us of Terra. We stopped laughing when our skies turned black." She closed the book and handed it to Jace. "Let this be the last war," she said. Jace looked up at the stars. "If not, we'll be ready." The stars watched, and for the first time in 1,000 years, they knew fear, because the Deathworlders had come, and they would never sleep again.